Hey guys, welcome to this new part of the tutorial where we're gonna start shading our plants that we've just made before. So let's dig into it and firstly change the render engine from Blender internal to Cycles render. I'm gonna turn on my screencast keys as always. And let's do it. Actually, first of all, we need to grasp some reference images. So let's head off to Pinterest. So here, as you can see, we have this brownish flower, if I could say. I don't know how to call it actually, but it's brown with some strands going horizontally. Really rough object, not very reflective. And we have these grass strands here that are pretty much reflective and translucent. So let's go back to Blender and try to replicate this. So here we are back in Blender, and now let's get starting for creating the materials. I always make my interface separated in three major spots, which are the real-time rendering, the UV map, and the node editor. So I'm gonna load in my HDRI here. So here it is loaded in, and I'm gonna quickly start making this material. So I'm gonna click on new and name it swamp grass. Okay, so we will start again from a BSDF, principled BSDF. And firstly, what I'm gonna do is actually make the brownish part here. So I'm gonna go back to 3D view, tab into edit mode, and just select this upper part here, like so, and assign to it this material, and I'm gonna create a new material and name it stem, and control I on the 3D viewport and assign this to the current selection. So like that we have like two materials. So if I change this color, you can see it's only influencing the part we've selected. Maybe we should add this part here. Okay, so here we go. So swamp grass again, and for that what I'm gonna do is start with a noise texture here. Take a look at how to it. So it's looking like this, and then what I'm gonna do is add a mapping node. Mapping node here, and with that I'm gonna scale actually, and then maybe texture UV coordinates here. Okay, so here we are. Again, a color ramp. I really like to make procedural materials and use as less textures as possible. You can use texture if you want, but it's a personal preference, if I could say. And what I'm gonna do now is scale it along the y-axis, like so. So we have this. So we have this cool strands here, or horizontal noise. Just point is okay. You can play with this scale to make it somehow. And I'm gonna stay with like 6. I think 6 is fine. We can add some more details if we wanted, but in my opinion, it doesn't really matter, as it's much too small to be visible at this. Especially at this distance, we barely see these details. So I don't think at a higher distance it will be much more visible. So I'm gonna connect my principled shader and then pick a like go for brown, something like this, brownish color, and pick our color ramp here, feed it to the normal, and pass it through a normal map, like so. and then use UV map. Actually, I don't really like to use the normal map, as I really don't know how it reacts sometimes, so I prefer adding a bump here. Take my color, feed it through height, and then to the normal. And as you can see, we start having, if I go like for a crazy distance, you can see, I hope so, and you can see this effect here. So a distance of 0.1, and then we can play with the roughness here, so we create more or less a reflective effect. So for the roughness, I'm gonna go really pretty much high and have a low specular. Maybe get the strength a little bit higher, like 2. Yeah, maybe 2 is fine. So I think it's okay. I think it's okay for now. It's looking pretty much good. And we can now go to the stem here, and for the stem, it's a little bit different. We can use actually procedural material, but what I'm gonna do is actually let's do this. Yeah, it's exactly the same principle. So I'm gonna take these nodes here, copy them, go back to stem, and paste here. Now I'm not gonna use that, and as you can see, we have these horizontal lines. The idea now is to scale them along the x-axis, so we have this like vertical noise here. We can get the scale a little bit higher and play with this so it's more visible. Okay, again, what we can do and here is again to feed this one through another color ramp here, and this one goes there. Okay, it goes there, and what I'm gonna do here is take some green color. I'm going to saturate it a little bit dark, and do the same with the second one. Make it a little bit darker and try to play with these. Okay, so we have something that looks pretty neat. And next, again, I'm gonna add a bump, which will be really subtle, as you can see. And finally, I'm gonna add a translucent BSDF that I'm gonna combine with a mixed shader, and take this one to some light, something like yellow or so, and bring the factor down. So something like this, really quick and nice material, and I think it's gonna make it for the scene. And what I'm gonna do here is apply this material to the rest of our objects. So here we have our materials applied to all of our plants. But as you can see here, if I go to full screen, as you can see, the materials are pretty much identical. The only difference is maybe the distribution of the noise that depends on the object, but pretty much they are all the same. So what we're gonna do is play with the random node here. If we click on this one, swamp grass, and if we just take all of these here, move them down again, and then I'm gonna add noise texture again. We can take a look at it. Add a color ramp and get a little bit higher contrast. As you can see, it's different from an object to another. If we put the it's different from an object to another, and what we're gonna do, or simply what we're gonna is use this ramp here and get some brownish colors. I'm gonna pick like this one here, and again, and maybe make it a little bit darker, and invert these two, something like so. So we have like a different shape based on a different color based on obviously you can play with it a little bit more. Some detail, and here we go. So it's yeah, it creates some variation. Actually, it's pretty much the same noise, but as the objects are different in size and shape, etc., it creates different patterns. So I think it's pretty much nice. Okay, we can do the same for our stems here. Again, we just need to use a noise texture here and use a mix RGB. These two. You can see how it does look like. Let's use multiply. Yeah, I'm gonna use the factor, it's better. You can also add a color ramp again, or contrast, maybe. Brightness contrast is gonna be easier. And add some contrast here. Just a little bit, so it's not black at all. And then again, plug it, and we have some variations for our stems. So I think it's pretty much ready to be used, and what we're gonna do next is our grass strands. And for these ones here, we're gonna use a texture that I grabbed from CG Texture, so feel free if you want to download it to go there. So give it a quick save, and let's start for this one here. I'm gonna call it strand, maybe grass strand 1. Again, we're gonna start with a principal BSDF that I'm gonna connect there. Make a little bit from here. Okay, so now I'm gonna Control T on the principal BSDF. So it adds how could we solve so the image texture nodes with the mapping and the UV coordinates. And what I want to check is again if the object is unwrapped or not. It was not, so I unwrap it here. And what I'm gonna do is load my image, my texture image for the grass. And once loaded, you can click here and see, take a look at what it does look like actually. And if you switch to edit mode, you can place your object or your UV maps, sorry, somewhere in the texture so that you have it applied, something like so. Once it's applied, if we go to render mode, you can see that it grabs all the data from the image where you placed it and applies it to your mesh. So if I move it, you can see that it moves all along. And next, again, it's the same process as we've did lastly with our wood material, is that we're gonna load in the roughness, the normal map, and the translucent map that we're gonna place here, and then add a translucent SDF, combine it with a node shader, and connect the map here. So I'm gonna found all of these different maps and come back to you really quick. So here are the different images that have been loaded. So I'm gonna use a normal map just to have some bump. UV map, so it's applied, and then I'm gonna play a little bit with translucent BSDF, and the idea behind it is we can use the albedo texture and alter it with the hue saturation node. And what we can do is simply make it a little bit lighter and give it more saturation, for example. And I think it's gonna be fine. And we need to repeat this process actually with all of the strands. As I said, each time you select a strand and unwrap it like so, unwrap it, you need just to place it in a different spot so we have a more variation. So we have a more variation of on the grass. So I'm gonna go and do this process and then come back to you really quick.